Welcome to the Global Marketing Show, where we explore how language and culture impact global business. I'm Wendy Pease, your host and president of Rapport International. Let's get started. Welcome, listeners, to another episode of the Global Marketing Show. As a reminder, the show is brought to you by Rapport International, who always provides us with a tidbit. Now, since Rapport International does provide foreign language translation and pays attention to the details, this one's a good one. In 1986, American Fulbright scholars were welcomed to the palace in Beijing, and China with a big sign stretched across the gates that read, "Welcome American Fiends." They dropped the R by accident. So that can have a huge difference in meaning if you're not careful about making sure where the periods, the spaces, and all the letters are included and where the word breaks are. So Rapport International shares that they are very careful to make sure your details are caught. On to our guest today, Ekaterina Gorbacheva is joining us. She is the Global Expansion Director at Udora. It's a gifting platform that's operating across 50 plus countries and over 1,500 cities. She's delivered 123% year over year growth and 129% go-to-market value growth through deep market localization. She's a sought-after speaker all over the world, and she brings hands-on experience in cross-cultural marketing, localization strategy, and scaling commerce in many, many different markets. So, Ekaterina, welcome. Thanks so much for joining.
Hello, Wendy. Thank you for having me today. I really value the importance of localization, and I really like the example that you brought about how Chinese greeted because I lived 8 years in China, and that's where my career started. And like it sounds so familiar because the languages has such a massive difference, and often people take localization is just the translation of words, without actually understanding their concept, the digital behavior, and a lot of aspects of localization that must be taken into account when you're entering the global scene.
Right, right. And those details and that culture really does matter. So I want to hear a little bit about your background. Like, how did you end up as Global Expansion Director at Udora?
So, shortly as I just mentioned, my career started in e-commerce in China. I had my own startup there, went through China Accelerator program. That was a pet sitting platform, and we helped serve a lot of pet owners all over China. Then later on, COVID happened. I moved to Thailand. I was consulting corporates and startups with the localization, globalization, and how to enter the tech scene. And later on, I joined Udora 2 years ago as the global expansion director to make sure that we're able to scale globally because you must be very picky on details when you set up the operations, set up the teams in order to avoid overgrowing the teams and also making sure that you're optimized and take each culture into account. So, with my experience working with both corporates and startups, I got into Udora because I love the concept. Today, for example, I got a message on my phone while I was in the gym. Hey, somebody is sending you a gift. And even though I'm working in this company, every day, and I know how many flowers and gifts are being delivered all over the world, when I received this message this morning and I didn't know who it was coming from, then I got back home, I received my flowers, and it was such a thrill. I was like, oh my God, I'm looking at these flowers now. They're on my table. It's so fascinating. And it was a beautiful reminder of how much joy we're bringing into the world. And that's what brought me to that company.
Oh, that is fascinating. So Eudora launched in 50 countries and lots of different cities. Can you tell us how it works?
So we break down the regions. First of all, our presence in different regions are different. So let's say in Some countries will have just like 7 to 10 shops, for example, while in Brazil we're presented in 70 cities. That's a big difference. So when we are saying that we're in 50 plus countries, that's correct because we do have local shops all over the world. That's what helps us to actually build this global experience for users. No matter where you go, you can still have your own Udora app to actually send the gifts wherever your loved one or your friend is located. It doesn't matter. And for us, we have two main strategies: local strategy and global strategy. Local is when we are already growing on the market. For example, we have our main markets such as Brazil, Spain, UK, UAE, Turkey. Now we are entering states. We already have around 50 local stores there and 10 cities. So it takes it step by step. More presence we have in the market, more marketing channels we start using. So basically, that's what I called our marketing ladder. You do not need to build 50 local teams to set up to be a global company. You just need to be smart in operations, how you set up your team, and also you need to evaluate the effort of how many people need to be involved in each channel and how much budget you have. Because, for example, it doesn't make much sense if we have, let's say, just 2 shops in Iceland to actually start a huge PR campaign there, because it wouldn't benefit as much as, for example, in Brazil, where we're present in 70 cities. So that depends on how big our presence on the market. That's where we make the decision on how much effort we put in each market.
So where did Udora start? Where was it founded?
So we started in Dubai, in UAE at first. Simultaneously, we expanded to UK and Spain. Then a year later, Brazil came into place. That's when we started entering Latam slowly. So I would say globalization started quite quickly. So even though we started in UAE, it's hard to imagine right now what would be happening to Udora if we just stayed there, instead of taking a global strategy pretty much right away.
I hear that's a common thing with countries that are smaller. They think global from the start, whereas a lot of companies that could be doing much better in the United States think, oh, I have the whole United States, but they might have a better market if they went someplace else.
It also was connected to the fact that in EU, for example, 80% of people are expats. And the demand for even people in Dubai to send flowers abroad was one of our great motivation points to actually grow the global demand. And right now, our global sales is 50% of our revenue, which I find fascinating.
Oh, yeah, but 50% still coming from UAE, where
No.
80% of the people. Oh.
No. Not no in UAE, including in UAE in general. If we take their global scale and we take all our countries together and we count how many sales we have in one country, for example, a person in Spain orders flowers in Spain, or for example, if you're in New York, you order in New York. Those we call local sales. And global sales in when you order from one country to another country or from one city to another city. Those are global sales.
Oh, okay. So if I'm in New York and I send to New York, that's 50%, 50%, but 50% of your people are sending to a different country.
Exactly. And once we figured that out, we started including in our marketing campaigns more points about their distance and how we help to add this warm touch to people, like to show their presence even within the distance. And that's how it started growing even bigger.
That's fascinating. And so then do the price, like if I send flowers to somebody in New York City, I would assume the price is going to be higher than if I sent flowers to somebody in a smaller town in Brazil where they might, grow more flowers, or Holland, or the Netherlands. I mean, is it the same price of where you're located, or is there a price differential depending on where you're sending it?
So I guess that's our one of the main competitive advantages, probably an unfair advantage as a marketplace and as an e-commerce company. We work with local shops. We do not dictate the pricing. The pricing is set by the market of the florists and bakeries that are actually available on the market. So generally speaking, you're right, because in New York, flower shops have higher prices normally than flower shops in Brazil. So of course, if you uh, go to Udora and you pick to send in Brazil, you will see the local Brazilian shops there, which would give you their relevant prices from that region.
Oh, okay. Okay. So a platform where the local people can set. That's fantastic. Now let me jump you back to opening markets. You started in UAE and then you went to the UK and Spain and then you started expanding. What was your strategy about which markets you went into?
So at first, we were observing the UAE market and the amount of expats there. Like it's, I guess, quite common knowledge that there are a lot of British people in UAE. So UK was kind of a relevant choice. Spain, I would say, was quite random. We just started uh, running performance ads campaigns in Google and Facebook, and we started having the actual sales orders. So we decided to investigate the market further, and then it started giving us great feedback. So that's when we see, okay, we're able to get the local shops on the platform. Okay, point one done. Then we're able to generate first orders from their campaigns. Okay, second step done. Next step is retention. Okay, are we able to keep these customers on the platform so they order again and again through our platform? So basically, if we're able to meet these three criteria, that's how we choose whether we are expanding to the market further and how much money we invest into it.
Okay, so it was local providers that you could find, the people that could fulfill the orders. It
Mm-hmm.
was people were buying and then coming back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
that's
then,
very straightforward. It's, in my opinion, it's legitimately common sense because every company needs to validate that they are able to sustain on the market. And I believe this data driven strategy is actually the best scenario that anyone can pick. Because if you blindly choose the market because you consider it big, it doesn't mean that you as a company would be able to work there. You need to see your own numbers.
right. And so back to you did performance ads on Google and you got a response from Spain. What languages were you running the ads in to figure that out?
Spanish.
Did you just run, so you were running them in English and Spanish
Yeah,
or other
that's right.
languages?
Right
Okay.
now we are running more languages. For example, we started campaigns in Portuguese because there is a big Brazilian community in Spain. So, and those ads, usually that's an interesting insight for people who work in marketing and maybe never took this into account. It's always cheaper to run campaigns in a foreign language in the company, in the country. So, for example, if you run ads in Portuguese in Spain, it would be cheaper than running the same ads in Spanish because the bid for this ad would be lower.
Wow. Okay. So then you figured out there was a big Brazilian population in Spain. You ran the cheaper ads, but everybody in Spain that was from Brazil wanted to send flowers back home to their loved ones in Brazil. So then that led you to the next country that you went to.
That wasn't, I wish it was like that. That's not exactly Brazil just happened for us because we we considered Brazil was an interesting country choice, I would say. It was chosen because we considered the market is big. Now we're not taking the same decision making way as it was back then. So Brazil already happened for us, and we actually decided to just evaluate their Brazilian community in Spain after we've been already launched in Brazil for several years. And we just figured out this year that actually running ads in Portuguese in Spain, it's a great value for money for us. And then we started running ads in different countries in different languages, and now we have a lot of different connectors like that. For example, if you run ads in Arabic in UAE, they also usually have their low pricing. If you run ads in Spanish in Brazil, if you run ads, by the way, in Spanish in United States as well, it also works.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's a huge market, is the Spanish market in the United
Exactly.
States, and people are keeping their language.
Exactly.
Wow. Interesting. Do you test the ads to see the response that you get, or do you do an analysis of what the country's populations are?
Oh, we run lots of campaigns. We update them all the time, and we have our calendar for the entire year with the different campaigns that we are running. We have always on campaigns, for example, that we normally do in their low season, such as summer, for instance. And that's where we run the campaigns as anniversary, happy birthday, those like the occasions happens like all over the year. We call them always on campaigns. And on their other occasions, such as St. Valentine's, Christmas, Mother's Day, that's when we prepare the campaigns, depend on the market, because there are about 10 Mother's Day in a year, depending on the region. Like in the United States, it's 10th of May, it was this year. But for
Yeah.
example, in the UK, it's in March. So we prepare different campaigns at different times in order to meet the demand of the particular market, because it would be pointless to run a Mother's Day campaign in the United States in March, you know?
Right, exactly. Yeah, I wouldn't get any response. Okay, so it really does sound like you're using your metrics to test rather than saying I want to do an analysis of, Spanish speakers in the US and find out that there's 17% of the population and 4% speaks Russian, or so you're not looking, you can run a quick campaign and see if you get a response.
No, of course, first we check the demographics, of course. For example,
Okay.
for example, one of their hypotheses, one of our managers got before this Mother's Day was to check their Colombian community in Spain. And then we started evaluating, okay, even though they're big, their mothers are probably in Colombia, in Colombia, our presence is not that high yet. So it wouldn't bring us, as even though it might work. And also in Colombia they speak Spanish, so the bid would be quite the same. So like that was a complicated hypothesis to run. But normally, yeah, we do check the demographics in each country, and we learn how to manage the different segments of population starting from Dubai, because that's where 80% of people are expats. And you need to learn actually how to work with each of them, uh, who is a Russian speaker, who is an English speaker, who speaks Arabic, uh, who is an English speaker, but for example from India. And there are a lot of things that you need to take into account when you segment your audience.
I know we started out the call talking about the details matter, and so you're in 50 different countries, and I'd assume you have to localize because English for the UK and the US would be very different.
Yeah.
So how are you handling the localization?
We do have American and British English on the platform. We have two. Like not every, like at first we just had the British one because UK was first choice for us when we started a few years ago. And then when we started entering United States, that's when actually American English got into place. And for the marketing campaigns, it was easy because those are just the creatives made by the designers and copywriters. So that's easy to adapt. While the website, where we needed to change each and every word everywhere, that was a little more hassle. But we have a team we have the localization team in-house that are actually already have the experience working with it. The only contractor we used when we decided to add Arabic into the platform. That's when we went to their contractor to actually make sure that everything is crystal clear, because we just had one copywriter for Arabic language, but it would be impossible for one person to first of all, translate all our three platforms, which are website, application for clients, and application for sellers. And secondly, it would be impossible to translate all of the documentation, terms and conditions, like all the screens. Like that's a lot of work when it gets to localization to a new language. And if the language is even more different, like Arabic, which is written on the opposite side, you need to be really like attentive when you're doing it. That's why, depending on the resource of the company, like for us right now, it makes more sense to have their mainly in-house team, but we still went for a contractor for Arabic because it would be not making much sense for us to build the in-house team to do it all at once
Oh, for the air, what's the
for the
difference
Arabic.
between the Spanish and Arabic? It's because of the complexity of the language.
It's because of the complexity of the language, exactly. Because, for example, we have several Spanish speakers in the company. We have 10 Brazilians in the company. We have Turkish in the company. So, like, for these languages, we have more people who also able to review. And for Arabic, we had just one. So that's why, like, actually not one, two, but still, like, we needed more attention to the details to do it, and also work with the product team to make sure that all their user journey is actually correct, because we needed to change the buttons, checkout, a lot of things that might move because of the differences. It happened, I've seen it a lot when I was working in China, because Chinese language, as you know, is like, it's totally different from English, and
Right,
the
yeah.
interface in China is also completely different from the United States, for instance. And when we launched in English at first in China because we're serving expats. Then we decided to expand to Chinese because obviously we were in China back in Shanghai, and like it would make sense to actually start working with Chinese people, at some point. And since I'm able to speak Chinese, so I was able to actually review all the translations and how everything looks, and I was aware of the interfaces. And having two languages is different to having 14, like in Udora we have now. But for instance, if we decided to add the Chinese language, we would still go probably to a contractor because the complications would cost you more trying to do it in-house.
You're kind of breaking it between the character languages and then the European alphanumeric languages, is which you could do in-house and which you'd outsource.
That's pretty much it, yeah. That's a good summary.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's interesting. And then how do you screen for the people that you hire? Because if is your company language English? And so they need to be fully bilingual and know marketing and be passionate and know the metrics. So how do you go about hiring people?
That's like exactly as you just mentioned. First, we look at the skills. They all must be able to speak English because otherwise, how would we communicate? We need to have like one common language. And then, secondly, for example, my team actually, I gathered from the company. When I came, at first, I didn't have a dedicated team who worked with global expansion because at first I needed to audit, like, okay, which processes are going well, which are not. We had a lot of, not a lot, but like some restructurization between the departments. And while I've seen some blind spots, I actually gathered their people who already worked in Udora before. And that's how my team happened. And then
Oh, so they
we,
really had product knowledge and then you targeted the
exactly,
language skills.
exactly. And that was a great example. Then, of course, we had a few more hires for my team and other teams that we needed, like at that point. For example, we hired their creative project manager who is working with all our creative campaigns for like Mother's Day or St. Valentine's. Somebody needs to build a concept around it. Or for instance, we hired the new SEO head of SEO. And when we got her, like we were watching at her experience to be able to have the global knowledge to run so many websites that are localized, because our domains, it's like udora.com, udora.ie, udora.es. So because local SEO works better in our case, because we work with local shops. So we needed a person who had this unique skill set of building such. And we were able to find her. And she's right now a great match to our company. Like, because her skill set was quite niche and it was exactly what we're looking for.
Okay. And then you're all virtual, right? Or you're hiring people in, yeah.
We are a fully
So,
remote company.
okay. And then, so are you finding people that are in country with the language skills, or it doesn't matter? You could have somebody in UAE that's English, Spanish.
That depends on the position. Of course,
Yeah.
like once we counted, at some point we had people in 28 countries. Yeah. So like that was interesting. Usually, if we speak about acquisition managers who work with the local shops and who are their account managers, they help them to get into the platform, and then they work with the stores, help them to update their catalogs, and there are many details that like we have internally how we help shops to get more orders within the platform. And those people are locals because they need some, for example, in Spain, which we find, in Brazil, by the way, as well, which we find very useful, is that when the girls or guys go to the stores and talk to people,
Okay.
it's like it was in France the same. It was actually fascinating that how much more traction from the local sellers we had once girls and guys started to actually reach out for them, not just virtually, but also meet them in person. At first, it sounds like a waste of time, in this like remote world today where AI is like going everywhere. But to make this offline connection, sometimes it's necessary if you want to actually make a business work.
Yes, yes, and that absolutely goes back to knowing the culture and how are you going to have the biggest inroads into that.
While in Dubai, nobody cares. We literally do not have anybody living even now in Dubai.
Oh, and so you can contact them, and there's so many expats, they're used to talking and relating to people internationally, so they're using more virtual.
Exactly. Like, okay, I
Yeah.
go to Dubai like 2, 3 times a year because one of my teams is the partnership team, and the way how we also managed to build partnerships uh, in UAE was also due to offline connections there. So, for example, I speak on the conference, then, or I attend the CRM training in Dubai, and there I met people who work in the big banks, for instance, and that helped us to actually set up the partnerships with them and start working with them. And that helped us a lot to start this new department internally.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. You know, it sounds like you've had tremendous success, and it's so interesting to hear the journey. And I get it immediately. I can go to Udora, UDORA.com, and I can order local flowers to be sent, or cakes or cookies, so any those kinds of gifts. So listeners, go check it out. Um, and every successful company has had some missteps or has made some mistakes. What mistakes could you share that you encountered along the way that others can watch out for?
You need to know the culture, and not just you as the person who is running marketing, but actually you need to have cultural training within the teams. Because, for example, in our case, when I just joined the company, I joined in November, and it was just before Christmas, Christmas time. And here I am accidentally just checking their design channel, like which we have in Slack. And there I see the banner for Christmas, and I'm like, guys, where this banner is going for? And they're like, Dubai. I was like, are you sure? There is a bottle of champagne on it. Like, I was like, I think it's not a good idea to have this champagne bottle on the banner. And the designer genuinely asked me, like, what's wrong? Like, I was like, first of all, it's illegal.
So all
Second,
alcohol is illegal in Dubai. And if she had
it's
never,
not like it's not illegal, but it's definitely not legal to put on the banner in the application or into your
ah,
advertisement. Like it's still a gray zone in the country. So like it's not like in Saudi Arabia where it's like completely forbidden. Like but in UAE you can order drinks in the restaurant, Dubai, in the shops. But even the shops in Dubai, they're like under the closed curtains, you know. But for instance, for some other countries, it would work greatly, but just not for Dubai. So like people internally needs to be trained. That's when we started making their guides for everybody who we are onboarding or who were already in the company to train them about the differences of each market. Because you cannot expect, for example, the junior graphic designer to know all the details, you know? So
right, right,
it's not their fault that they didn't take this into account. It was the management responsibility to make sure that you set the task correctly with all the details. Then you would be
right.
able to avoid these mistakes. Then what else we had? Like yeah, we had a lot of such localization things like within like this years. What else we did? We tried, so uh, there is always a big question for companies who decide to go globally or expand to different markets, whether they need to have country managers or not, whether they need to
Yeah,
have like local teams or not. And very often they think that like, oh yeah, I will just hire these local people and they're gonna grow me like business like in 5 minutes. So that's how our Brazilian team started. We had the Brazilian team of 10 people. That happened before I came to the company. Like they had 10 Brazilians who were running everything in Brazil. And we had like 80% of global team that were running other 49 markets. Imagine their amount of resources that 10 people in Brazil have and amount of resources that 80 people team have. You know, it's impossible to even compare because they needed to have it was like a little startup even though they have the local market, but it was impossible for them to run as many campaigns as we did globally. It was impossible to optimize as we had because the amount of expertise is also limited, you know. So
right. Yeah.
it was a great example for us that uh, building local teams is not the best case scenario if we don't want to be 1,000 people company, you know. And also, once we integrated the Brazilian team and completely centralized our marketing, actually, Brazilian market showed high growth for us.
Huh.
So, so centralized marketing helped a lot. But that mistake was made. Now we know that like we shouldn't do this because another thing that people can learn from it, if you try to have like a lot of country managers, you still have one product team that is running the app, you know?
Ah,
And
yeah.
15 country managers cannot go to CPO and say, hey, I need to add this, I need to add that. It would just, at some point, it would just become noise for the product team.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and you wouldn't, and if the people are not working, never worked with the product teams, if, for example, they're doing business development, let's say, they do not have like tech expertise, it would be impossible for them also to validate why it is necessary or why it is not. So, product team would never take their task seriously.
Oh, interesting. So they're getting a ton, but they're not fulfilling it. So the in-country managers are going, they never listen to me. Yeah, that would be a
Exactly.
bad cycle. The other thing that I've seen is people will start building out their country managers or their country teams, and then they create their own marketing. So they've lost the whole global marketing message, and then they're doing multiple translations or localizations that don't match. So they look like different companies, even though and they're not
Exactly.
getting all the juice from being, having one consolidated website or web presence, look and
And
feel.
the, and they're duplicating the work. That's the worst of it. Imagine of
Right.
how much of repetitive things you're making. Of course, you cannot use, for example, the same ads that you're running in winter in the UK in Dubai, because simply the weather is different. Like
Right.
if you like put something in social media with like snowy Christmas, like it would like, or from New York, like it wouldn't really work for Dubai that well because it's freaking hot there at that time. So
Yeah.
there is a big difference here. Like you need to take into account, but also uh, once you have your team centralized and once you optimize all this process, that's when you can really grow. It's just a matter of optimization of your work. And today, honestly, with AI, it gets so much easier to set all of this.
Oh, to optimize and become more efficient.
Exactly. It's much easier to
Yeah.
test their new ideas you have for the market. It's much easier because, for instance, just today, literally 1 hour before our podcast, I had a call about we want to launch corporate sales in Brazil. So we're
Mm-hmm.
discussing, okay, what do we need to have like, how do we need to update the product? What do we need on the legal side? How we're going to be generating invoices? These basic things which we need to take into account before we start the new business internally within the company. So,
Yeah.
and then I found out that one of our teammates vibe coded literally the whole interface for it already. I was like, when did you do that? It looked fascinating, and he actually included like even the details none of the rest even thought of. I was like, that's amazing. He didn't even touch their tech team, and the guy is not a programmer. I was like, wow, you're awesome. Like that's great. That was a very unexpected.
Yeah, yeah,
But
he's a
he
keeper. Yeah.
Yeah, but he wanted to have a visual. He wanted like,
Yeah.
yeah, guys, so by the way, I want to show you something like I made before our call. We were like, what? Like, are you serious?
That's great. We are starting to run out of time, and I could keep going on this because your story is fascinating. How about the biggest piece of advice you could give to somebody doing global marketing?
Take into account digital behavior and the culture. It's crucial,
Mm,
I would say, when you decide to enter the market. And then make sure to validate that you as a company brings value to the market. Because if you think that your idea is great, but it doesn't match the culture and you're not able to actually work there, then maybe that's the wrong market and just go to another one instead of
hmm.
wasting time on the market that where you're not needed.
Right, right. That's good. All right, and I think I prepped you for this question. What's your favorite foreign word?
Amor.
Amor.
I literally have even a tattoo on my body with this word. And that's
Well,
that's
tell us what it
official.
means, yeah, and why it's your favorite
It
word.
it means love. And I believe that love that really can that what everybody needs more. Love what brings
Oh.
people together. And I'm glad to work in the company that helps to spread love around the world.
Oh, that aligns with your passion. Yeah, that
Yeah.
is fantastic. All right, and tell people how they can find your website in order and then how they can reach out to you if they'd like to learn more.
Udora, as you mentioned, we have the website udora.com. We have the application Udora. I prefer to use application because it's just, I think we work on it more. Then, if you'd like to reach out to me, I don't know, Wendy, if you want, you can add my LinkedIn below, and then anybody can reach out to me. I definitely will share our podcast there as well. And I would love to hear the feedback if there is any. And welcome to ask me questions. I love to chat with people and see like who else is doing what around the world.
Excellent. Yes. So if you want to reach out on LinkedIn, we will definitely put links in the show notes. And Ekaterina Gorbacheva is our guest name today. So you can look for her on LinkedIn under Udora, which is UDORA. And I'm watching it carefully because I don't see any stores in Boston yet, Boston, Massachusetts. So I hope you're coming here, but now I know to look for the other cities that I might want to send to. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me here. It was such a pleasure talking to you.
And listeners, if you enjoyed this, please follow us, forward this on to a loved one who wants to send love to you. And give us a 5-star. And if you're interested in being a guest and share your global marketing journey, then certainly reach out to us at Rapport International. There is a application to be a guest on the show. Thanks so much. Au revoir. And I hope you spread lots of amour. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Global Marketing Show. We started this podcast to capture the stories of people who do global marketing and work for companies that export, since those companies have higher revenues, higher profits, higher valuations, higher salaries, and more stability, according to the U.S. Department of Commerce. If you enjoyed this podcast episode, please leave a review and subscribe. And if you know somebody who would be a good guest, introduce them to me, your host, Wendy Pease. If you'd like to learn more about global marketing or language translation and interpretation, visit Rapport International's Resource Center at www.rapport translations.com. Au revoir. Hasta luego. Ciao for now.